The act of self-preservation has always led to innovation. Art practitioners, organizations, and institutions around the world have met the challenges posed by the pandemic with agility, even as this has accelerated the transition to digital medium. Here to discuss this topic, I'm thrilled to be joined by someone I've been a huge fan of for over 30 years, the one and only Lillete Dubey. Thanks for being here, Lillete. And of course, we couldn't
Thank
complete
you.
this panel without the brilliant actor, director, and creative consultant Anahita Uberoi and the very talented Mr. Quasar Thakore-Padamsee, the artistic director at QTP India and a keen cricketer. All of them are among the most acclaimed theatre artists we have in India today, and I'm pleased to have them with us. So let's dive straight into it then and talk about how the concept of shared experiences have evolved with the pandemic and whether we stand to lose the essence of storytelling and of production by reformatting performance arts to online platforms. So thanks so much for joining us here today. And let me just dive straight into it because we're a little short on time. So what we've been seeing over the last couple of years has been that plays are being streamed online now. So we've seen virtual meet and greet with actors, with writers and directors. We've seen online performances and art walkthroughs become commonplace. So, what do you guys think? Do you think the pandemic has brought unique opportunities for artists and institutions, in that they can use the internet to forge new collaborations and, reach online audiences with ease, and even access a global audience, just without leaving the city? So, it's making sort of geography become history in a way, right? It's also creating new outlets for the performing arts. So, there are a lot of positives, of course, or do you think it's been a bane for performance artists, because of digital fatigue, because of the reduced attention spans, and a huge glut in content that we're seeing right now? So, Lillete, let me start with you.
So we discussed this a little bit. Hi, Meghna. Look, as you said, you've known me for more than 30 odd years, so that makes me quite a fossil. And from my vantage point, uh, if you ask me honestly, I didn't go online. I have to admit that. I didn't want to. That was a very voluntary choice. Because for me, essentially, I know we have to adapt, we have to keep changing and adapting to new norms, new things. As someone was saying only to me yesterday, we performed in Baroda, that this is going to be there for a very long time. New normal is not for today, it's going to be there for years. Maybe we'll never go back to the way things were. I know all that, and my rational mind accepts all that, but my soul and my heart don't accept it. I feel like theater's been there for millennium. I mean, it's been there for thousands of years, and its essence is the physical shared experience. It is, and I can tell you, having done a few shows just now in the last few weeks, there is no comparison, absolutely no comparison. I'm talking purely as a creative person first, not practically, not financially, just creatively. There is no connect. There is zero connect. We just become people on the screen, as we do in films, or in web shows, in television, whatever. We become imprisoned in the screen. We have no connect with with a human being anymore. And I feel the very essence of theater, why we all have clung to it and been nourished by it, and feel the deep need to keep going back to it, is because of that, because of that strange magic and electricity that happens when you are together in a room with other human beings and you're sharing your humanity and your story. So, to me, if the very essence is taken away, if you're there just to tell a story, well, there are plenty of people to tell stories. There are plenty of people to tell stories. And the very nature of theater, the way it's designed, the way it is, I know Kwasa and Anahita may not agree with me, is is something that is not meant for a one-dimensional screen. It is a three-dimensional performing arts medium, and it just doesn't translate for me. Even the most wonderful, I mean, I've seen Phantom on stage and I see Phantom on screen, and it's wonderful. I mean, for what it is, I enjoy it. But is it like seeing it on stage? No way, absolutely no way. And so for me, I know a lot of people were feeling creatively very constrained, very frustrated, very upset, needed to express themselves somewhere, somehow. And so they just said, let's go digital. At least it's halfway house kind of thing. And I understood that. completely. Because an artist, if he doesn't express himself, doesn't express herself, she's incomplete. So, you know that, you're a writer. If you never wrote a line for whether it's good, bad, and different is not the point. We just need to express. So I understood that urge and that need, but somehow I just wasn't getting compelled enough to do it, And honestly, the more I saw of theater being done online, the less inclined I was to do it. Even the great stuff, even the stuff from the National, the Old Vic, the Bolshoi, the Met, the blah, blah, blah. I was overdosed, inundated and overdosed. There was too much on screen to see. I mean, I've gone the other way now. I see very, very little. It's like I've seen too much in 1.5, 2 years. I can't
Yeah.
see it. So I felt, why do I have to add my two penny bit into this and start showing what I can do when I don't even have the resources and the wherewithal to do it in the correct way? If I'm going to compete with an old Vic production and a National Theatre production, which is done with 10 or 12 cameras, I don't know, Kwasa will know, some multiple cameras over 15 days, edited, put in its best possible avatar before it's shown to the audience. How can I even compete with that? I'm in a Zoom room, talking. Yes, we can call it a reading of a kind. We can talk about texts which we'd like to share. But even that, I feel that when there is so much, what am I trying to prove by also putting my play out there? Then I also wear a producer's hat, Meghna, and I thought to myself, I looked at the financials and I said, there's nothing in it. This is purely for the sake of creative fulfillment of some kind. And since it's not fulfilling me creatively at all to do this, why should I do it? I'd rather not do it. I'd rather wait it out for 2 years. But the point also is that maybe some people made some money and that money was important to them and that was great, that they could generate some money out of it. But truth be told, the little bit that I've seen also of theatrical work done online, aside from the very big productions, have not excited me or made me feel like this is great stuff and I really should do it. Now, I'll just sum it all up quickly so you don't need to come back to me at all, maybe through the whole thing. At the end of it all, also, is the future. So, supposing this pandemic rages on, or endemic now it's called, rages on, how are we going to do it? People will say, so you're being very idealistic and you're saying, I'm going to wait for the theaters to open and I will only perform over there. I will not perform anywhere else.
Yeah.
But supposing this goes on and on and on, certainly it's made me feel that when I do a play, maybe I should spend a little money and do a good version of it. Normally we just do a version for recording, for documentation. We don't really do it to play it out as a broadcast piece. So maybe I will do a better version of recording it and keeping it. And, for the bad times, they may come one day, I would at least not be embarrassed then to show that work on screen, because I have at least done it in a manner that is a little commiserate with being worthy of broadcast. Instead of just some half-baked thing. I had recordings of my plays and I had people saying, show it online. I said, but I'd be too embarrassed. I don't want to show it online. This is not the work. Why should I show it and make myself look, make the work look less than it is? As it is, we're doing it not live. Then we're showing a poor, watered down version of it. Not technically sound, not technically good. So why do that? Why do that? So I think what it has made me feel is that I should maybe spend money and make a good recording, of a piece that I do next, such that when times get very, very hard and we are, completely destitute and we don't know what to do, maybe we will use this recording and fulfill some kind of creativity also, creative urge also, and maybe it might generate some money also. Um, and all the reasons that you can share it with the globe and you can draw new audiences and I say, for what work, for
Yeah.
what work, for
Right.
work mine that I would like to show and present and share with the globe, which is of some quality, certainly not
Yeah.
of this quality. So for me, that compelling reason which other people throw at me, also doesn't excite me. And to be fair, I mean,
Okay.
to be frank, I also have taken my work abroad to 5 continents,
Yeah.
from one end to the other. So I will take the work abroad. I don't need to do this to
Yeah.
pull people from abroad to come and see
But it'd
my
be
work.
interesting to get Quasar's thought because you mentioned that he might not agree with you. So, Quasar, do you think the concept of shared experiences, it started with stories around the fire? Do you think that
Yes.
retaining the essence in the digital arena, online theater for me personally, also, like, I have to agree with Lillete on that. As an audience, it does feel a little bit like a soulless experience. But what can we do, right? We have to go digital. So artists are struggling to find new ways of presenting their work. But for how long can Zoom or YouTube or Facebook and Insta remain the new venues for performances? How are we going to recalibrate all of this?
So, I mean, just to start off, the first thing I'll say is that when we perform online, particularly when we perform online live, not recordings of shows that exist or whatever, but
Yeah,
when we perform online live, it's no longer theater. Um, it is a different medium. It is something new. It is something different. The theater community has been very quick to adopt these technologies because we are used to adapting and doing jugaad with anything. Like I was
yeah,
telling someone, like someone asked me, why are there so many shows in Zoom? I said, for us, it's like a banquet hall. It's not designed for theater, but we do shows in
yeah,
banquet halls when the request comes, or a conference room. We'll take the software and we'll jugadify it to make some point and some creation. What is interesting, and I completely agree with Lillete in the fact that you can't compete with the standards and the production values of other shows and all of that. But what the theater community has been very active in doing is creating live performances using a variety of these softwares. And when some of the projects that have happened and some of the stuff that I've watched, particularly with regards to the younger guys picking up and doing stuff with Tespo and stuff, and using OBS and using amazing merging of techniques. So you're using theater techniques, but in a digital form. So again,
yeah,
it's not theater online. These are live performances. They are live online performances, and some of it is amazing and some of it is interactive. I mean, Amitesh Grover just did a piece called The Last Poet, where you enter
yeah.
a room and there are actors in 5 or 6 different rooms, and you get to go and choose who you want to watch at what point, and you get kind of part of the story, about about the last poet, about how he was, what it is, and you get to choose. um Meghna Telang has created a show called Plan BCDE, where she presents to an audience, which she can see and that can see her and can talk to about these 4 or 5 plans about, how do you save the world from climate change, and how we'll
Okay.
adapt. And then she has this conversation with them. So these are really interesting kinds of things. Now, the reason why I say it's not theater, other than the form, and we're doing live, people are there, that connection. And this is something I discovered when we were trying to work on a piece called Every Brilliant Thing, online. And the thing is that for for the longest time, I always thought theater was a shared experience between an audience member and a performer,
Yeah,
right? And that was the relationship, right? We are in the live same space, we're breathing the same air, I'm aware that you are there, I can see you. And in Zoom that is possible, right?
yeah,
The I can see you, you can see me. But what was remarkable about some of the work I saw was actually theater is a one to many experience. It's one of the few one to many experiences left, and that means the performer with a group of audience,
mm,
Yeah.
right? And when we go to the theater, we go as a community to watch it. We go as a group of people to watch the theater. We are fully aware of the someone next to us,
yeah,
right? And what happens is that when one person laughs or one person gasps, we all participate in the joy of the piece. It is a one to many experience, one performance to many of us as a community. It is the last, community activity of where we look at
Last year.
someone generously, and yeah, it's really the. And if you think
yeah,
about our cinema experience, even, right, you have these, like, how many of us have been to the cinema? We've gone in a little bit late and we've sat down and
yeah,
we watched a film, and then when the lights come out in the interval, you discover how many people there were. in the cinema that you didn't know were there, right? Because
Yeah,
cinema
true.
seats are big, they're deep, they're trying to make it a one-to-one experience. They're trying to ignore
Yeah,
everyone. I mean, if you're on a date, you have to really put your hand, over those big thick things, to hold your date's hand. It's crazy, right?
yeah,
But in the theater, the seats are low, they're low back. You're fully aware of other people witnessing something with you. And that
yeah,
creates an energy, that creates a buzz. Unfortunately, that is not transferable in this lockdown performance
of
world.
course.
Because
Absolutely.
we're
Yeah,
alone in our room. When the show finishes, the Zoom goes off, and we're left
yeah,
alone.
yeah,
We're left alone, we're looking around, and it's no longer the energy that a room has, where we've shared something together. And even though I don't know you, you and I have had something,
yeah,
a moment, a meeting, an emotional moment. um,
yeah,
so I think that's been the big change. But there is remarkable, I think, development in trying to build a new form, and that
yeah.
is this live performance space, or
Okay.
this live performance online kind of thing,
Yeah,
performed live, because there is an energy that's still created. The fact that an audience member knows that performer is live does create a certain energy in
yeah,
the audience member as well. Even though they
True.
may not be connected, may not be able to have the conversation, but there is an energy created.
yeah,
um, and I think that the performers are doing amazing things. I mean, there's a show called The Light Catcher, which is I mean, the good thing
absolutely.
about it is that it's run by
Yeah.
professionals,
Okay, he's
run
hung.
by
And I thought, what
very
did you think of? Oh, yeah. Sorry, you hung over there.
productions from around the world, all
Yeah,
performing live. It's very exciting.
yeah. Great.
Oh, sorry.
Anahita, what about you? Q, he had the Youth Theatre Festival Thespo that had very tech savvy young performers. They live streamed performances, created their own podcast, had an online community network as well. How do you think that the adaptation has worked for thespians versus, say, up and coming artists? Do you think that, what we captured with, say, Lillete and Q, do you think the digital has created actually a generational divide?
No, actually, you know what? I'm going to go back a little, Meghna. In this whole notion of what happened in the last year and what we were faced with as a community as well as an audience. So I was actually on the other side, as luck would have it, during the pandemic, where I agree completely with Lillete and Quasar that you cannot compare live to digital. You just cannot. The theater is a very it's a sensual sensual experience,
Sensory,
right?
sensory,
Sensory
sensory.
experience, and we need that. We breathe together. There's all this give and take, which is what makes it as special as it is. So there is no comparison. I think we all agree on that. What happened last year, just to explain why we've come to where we've come, is that as it turned out last year, I was with Book My Show at that point as a creative consultant. So when the pandemic hit, there was this void, not just in Bombay or India, but across the world. And everyone collectively was trying to figure out what to do. And at that point, I was of the belief that theater, I was not working with just theater, it was all the performing arts, but I felt that the performing arts have been challenged over the years in different ways. There could be a war, there could be a natural calamity, there could be political issues, where you're not allowed to write something that you want to write, but artists always find a way. They find some way to stay alive. It's just natural to us, right? So what I did feel was that it was something that we needed to allow people to express themselves in whatever way they wanted. And people
Correct.
did. They came forward, some failed, some worked. The audiences liked some things, they didn't like something, but the show did go on. Now, I would say from March was the pandemic till about July, June, people started getting used to the notion as an audience to come onto a platform and watch and even pay. Till then, for the first couple of months, it was free. So people came and there was this free exchange. But then producers needed to earn, actors needed to earn, and so ticket prices started. Once the ticketing started, there for about 3 months, the audience came. Sadly, of all the performing arts, theatre
Yeah.
was the one that didn't transfer as well, because theatre is that emotional shared experience, you know. So stand up worked, music worked, but not theatre, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, we went on, and then I would say from September to early December, things were going pretty okay. But come November, December, there was a crash because digital fatigue set in. So while audiences were ready to experiment, performers were ready to experiment, the honeymoon was over, you know.
Yeah.
And
That's interesting.
that's when 90% of the stuff dropped off. And
Oh,
I do believe that the stuff that will remain will belong to the youth,
okay.
because the youth is technically very savvy, adaptable, and
Yeah.
quick. I mean, you've got young kids who are
Yeah.
making entire movies on their phones,
Yeah.
right? So it's not theater, it's something else. It's not film,
Yeah.
it's not theater, it's some new,
New
strange
form. Yeah.
theater. Yeah. And it's
Okay.
happening.
Totally
I think
agree. I
that
totally
to the
agree.
youth.
Yeah,
Huh?
I totally agree with Anna that and Kwasa. I think he's put it very well. There's a new hybrid kind of thing that has emerged. It is not
Yeah.
theater as we know it, at least as we know it,
Yeah.
but it is yeah. It's using technology to create something that is
Else.
in a
Yeah.
way live, in a way live, but it's not. And as long as we don't call it theater, we call it just people want to express themselves through live performance of not of the variety of comedy or stand up or this or that, but in the theatrical space they want to do something live.
Yeah.
And I think if you keep it like that and you define it like that, it could be a very exciting medium. The way Casa is describing it, I haven't seen, but I've heard of the Last Poet and all that. Guys,
Mm.
it's like that thing that happened abroad where where they did Macbeth in a house through several
Yeah.
rooms, and you
Yeah.
must have heard of that production. I saw it. I was deeply disappointed, to be frank, because
Yeah.
novelty does not equate to excellence or something brilliant. You see, and I saw it, and there were moments and there were bits, images and all that, which were very interesting in that production, going 5 floors up and having a drink in between and all that sort of thing. And there were bits in it. The images were very strong in one or two places. But did it make me feel I've seen Macbeth? No, not at all.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes
Exactly.
something novel can lead to something quite brilliant. You have to experiment, and you have to experiment because it's new tools that you're using, completely new tools. And something can strike and you can make something quite fabulous. And I mean, I'd be
Absolutely.
happy to see it. But to me, I'm still such an old conservative traditionalist that theater belongs on the stage. These
But
things are
Lilith, let me ask
marvelous
you
to
something
watch.
about,
And
yeah, let me touch upon something you kind of brought up earlier, like the elephant in the room, if I may, or rather the rupees that are missing from the room. So, the question not of existence, but actually of survival. So I think this whole
yes.
zeal to stay relevant, a lot of virtual streaming was offered up for little to no money. This put a great dampener on, an already sort of underfunded sector like theatre. So, what has this meant really for performing art institutions and for individuals, many of whom have had to rely on their own financial reserves, their savings, just to exist? And a lot of artists have faced this, a lot of freelancers have faced this during the pandemic. But have you seen a mass exodus of talent, of platforms due to these financial constraints?
you
Absolutely.
know I
Absolutely. I
think
think,
what has suffered is we have to divide the theatrical space into the producer, the actor, the technical people, the production people. The actors were the luckiest because they found other channels. They could get onto so many other platforms to earn a living. Of course they suffered, but then truth be told, actors don't make their money from theater. Okay, no actor makes his money from theater. Even abroad, unless you're doing a big Broadway show for a year, you're not making money out of theater. So for them, it was a loss more, I think, creatively rather than financially. And they found many an outlet to do that. The producer, the director, again, it was more a creative thing rather than, I mean, if you were running a company like Quasar or me or something, yes, there was a loss because you had no productions. You were not producing anything, you were not putting it up, you were not earning any money. So there was a loss. But unless you lived purely and completely by theatre and your bread and butter depended on it, you could somehow struggle and manage. I mean, I know Quasar and I don't only live purely by what we earn from theatre. So we kind of manage. I think it was the technical people, the production people, the people who don't do anything else. They don't have a hand in television and a hand in something else. They are the ones who are absolutely like rudderless. There was no money. I mean, no backstage person could earn anything. I'm talking about that small pool of people who are still left, as Argya was saying that day, maybe the 10 light designers left, only do lights. So if they were only doing this, and they've all tried to branch out. Actually, probably the pandemic or the lockdown pushed them into finding other creative outlets and ways of earning money, which is a good thing because they can't only depend on this for the rest of their lives, as their only source of income. So I think that is the group, I think Quasar and Anna will agree, who really suffered, who had nothing else, no other source of income. And of course, if there were directors and producers who were doing this, like commercially, Gujarati theatre or Marathi theatre, which is very commercial, and the producers and all put a lot of money, and they have like 32 shows a month, and that sort of money is being generated. Of course, they lost a lot of money, and there was financial loss. So that's I think that's the part that there were people who lost, who also had to switch careers. I know people who just switched careers completely. They couldn't survive in this business at all. They had to find new ways of earning money. I have a production manager, a production person, not a manager, but he handles my productions, and he worked partly for an ad company who used to put ads in the paper for newspaper, for theatre people especially, and worked with me and other Gujarati plays. And suddenly he told me when we went just now for a show that I am starting a small business with a partner in Gujarat to make garbage bags and this and that. I said, very good, very good, because what was he to do for so long? I mean, he was not earning a thing. So I think people just started finding other not careers, but sources of income. And some of them are really very, very badly off. I mean, I know only a few, but everybody must be knowing people in every group who, I mean, I know two who I had to literally support a little myself because the husband's business, see, it's also a combined thing. Husband's business went completely cut. बिल्कुल खत्म हो गया. And वो बेचारी काम कर रही थी, and then she had a child and she had given up, she was on a sabbatical, doing my shows, few shows a month, and getting some extra money, and maybe doing a couple of other shows here and there. And the husband was the main bread earner, and he lost his business completely. She had no work. They moved out of their in-laws' house or something like that, and for some other reasons, and they had just no money and this child. So I just had to find her a job somehow through hell, high water. I got her a job, and now she's found a better job and she's okay. But I mean, she's one example. But I felt personally very responsible that we have to do something to help them. And it's not a question of just giving a little money. I gave some actors in my larger group money, but that was a one-off thing. That's not going to support them for 2 years or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what
I felt really very, very, very bad that to ask someone for such small sums of money, it must you feel very small, and embarrassed.
It's the unfortunate tale of so many people. But since there's so much chatter now about two Indias, Quasar, I'll ask you this question. Let's touch upon the two Indias that are most impacted in performing arts. I think the one with and the one without digital access. So what is the state of, say, folk artists and all of this, of artists in villages with no internet access, and how can we promote them? How can we support them? And create opportunities for them, as Lillete so rightly pointed out, so that we don't lose centuries of tradition and of heritage. So, Quasar, what do you think the solution here really is?
So, I mean, unfortunately, so here's where it gets really problematic, and I think at least within the urban art scene, the the pandemic has come at a terrible time because it was just actually becoming an industry of some kind. There were a lot more shows that were happening, a lot more spaces that were opening up, a lot more people that were working and now saying, okay, this is my life, the live performing arts in whatever way, lighting designers. And live performing arts meaning between dance and musicals and,
Yes.
all of that. They were coming together and working in that. Um, Unfortunately, the theater, I mean, there's a lovely saying that the theater has always been dying. And it will continue to always be dying, but never die. And
Doesn't it just die?
and yeah, it's like Peter Sellers at the in the party, like. But the thing is, with our folk arts, that's even more true, and that's even more so. But within that, there is this weird balance also, which is the fact that, I mean, when we talk about two Indias, one of the things is that we are a complete paradox. All right. So Lillete, Anna, and I will complain the fact that we can't fill 1,000-seater auditorium in Bombay and say, yeah, there's no one's coming to the theater, no one's doing anything. And then there'll be a mobile theater, Assam, that is playing to 5,000 people a night.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right, for 9 months of the year.
Phenomenal.
All right, and they build houses and make a living of it like you wouldn't believe.
Wow, that's
So
phenomenal.
both are equally true.
Yeah.
All right, same thing. In Andhra Pradesh, there's a theater company that plays to an audience of 1 million people a year.
Oh my
1
God.
million in the rural areas.
That's
right,
fantastic.
that's their audience base. They go village to village and they perform. And here we are struggling for 1,000 people. We cut cake at 25 shows. This kind of thing, right? So both of it is absolutely true. All right, with the fact that yes, it is a struggle, and it is also, or it has been flourishing in the past. Pandemic has come, and that has changed some of the realities. One of the things that Lillete rightly pointed out is a lot of people, we're going to have a lot of drain, right? So a lot of people are going to move to other places, other kinds of jobs, other things. There are folk theater, performers in Calcutta that I know of that have all gone to selling fish. They've kind of given up. They've put their instruments down. They've put their storytelling down, and they've said, okay, what is it that people need in a pandemic? Food. That's what we're going to get into. So there are lighting designers that are now selling vegetables. Because that's how you can survive and make your end.
Yeah.
Now, will they make the shift back? Will they make it in the same way? Will they have as much time? We don't know. The same thing goes for a lot of folk performers as well. The reality is the same. Is that what do they do, and how do they make this happen? How do they keep the stuff alive? I really don't have the answer, and I don't think digital is the answer either. I think you need a far greater program from a cultural perspective. It's a much larger project, and we are not very good of taking care of our people. And that goes with.
Sorry, just say one. If nothing else, I think it has also underlined how little this whole sector, which was Sanjoy, my friend, has been talking about through the pandemic and trying to talk to the government and all, how poorly, well, not poorly, how completely unsupported this structure, this sector has been forever, ever. In your constitution, I mean, we have Natya Shastra on one side. We are the Desh of the Natya Shastra, and on the other side, our constitution or our government, whatever protocols, call it what
culture policy,
your culture policy is zero. Abroad, no one would survive. Not a single group, not a single theater would survive without the Arts Council or something like that supporting them. They would not. I don't know. We are all such brave souls that we have managed to keep on going with zero support from anybody. And if nothing else, especially in the folk sector, it has underlined the terrible need for the lack of any funds to look after these people. Yes, I also know, because I went to that Kuarpata, or that place they called in Assam, where they told me about this traveling theatre. And of course, Bengal has it. And Serendipity had called this particular Karnataka theatre that you're talking about, and they're amazing examples, but there are very few of them. The regular normal folk theatre is not all like this. But I was just saying to myself through this whole thing that these poor people have survived. We've all survived, and the government has just shut a blind eye. It's like that shows how little value they give to culture, how little value they give to the performing arts. Zero almost. Absolutely zero.
So
And I have to share one stupid thing. I'm not silly, a very silly thing that happened. I was on this expert committee of culture for the government, and I went a couple of times. And I can't tell you with what absolute, in 2 days, they had to allocate funds before the budget. Okay. They have funds for whatever they call culture, some amount of funds they allocate. And I went twice or thrice. I never went again because I was utterly shocked. They have chai and eat drink chai and eat samosas, and there are piles of these files about people, and I had only one thing to say. They wouldn't even let me look. They'd all looked and they decided, oh, Quasar's group and Sam is getting this, and so group is getting that. Small amounts of money. And I said, hello, all these people still alive? Because, this was like 20 years ago, you started giving this money to somebody in some remote village in India. You must at least go and see, what is the work they're doing. Maybe they need more funds. How many people are on their roles? There was such scant attention given to the money that was being allocated, and I'm saying it openly, that I was completely shocked. Completely. That is this the manner in which whatever money there is for culture? I came back to Bombay and I told a lot of young groups, do you know that you can apply for a 5 lakh grant? You can apply for a 10 lakh grant or 2 lakh grant. They don't even know. It's not even publicized. It's on some old rolls where some old companies are getting some money. No new blood comes, no new grants are given. So whatever little bit is being allocated even is very strangely allocated. I don't know if there is some central body that is paying attention to what it's being given for. But the pandemic has definitely shown that there is no value, there is no importance, there is no forget about us, as Kwasa said.
That's interesting, but what does all this mean for the future of performing arts? You guys have pointed out that while many have sounded the death knell for theatre, I think that since India is such a diverse and multicultural nation, theatre cannot be reduced to a single homogeneous trend. Like you guys mentioned, it's occupying a very hybrid space right now, and it has survived 200 years. Can a pandemic really undo it? And then what does it mean for the digital medium? Is that really the way forward? Like NCPA, for example, is launching its own digital platform. So, are the digital and the physical now two parts of a whole, or can the twain never meet? What do you guys think?
No, I think
I'd
they
love
will
to hear your
complement
thoughts.
each
Yeah.
other. I think they will complement each other ultimately. They will.
I think I think also they will coexist. I'm
Yeah.
not sure about whether the same people will be doing both, but there will be people who will switch over to digital or dabble in digital, and there will be people who won't, who will continue to go in the live space. I think this is the new norm, and speaking of folk theatre as well, just to let you know that again, when we talk about this to India kind of thing, even they, as far as they're concerned, they're actually in a way their kind of theatre allows a little more allows for performances a little more than ours, for the simple reason that a lot of their theatre is done
Open air.
outdoors.
Yeah.
It's open air, the whole village arrives, but there is social distancing, or can be social distancing or not, but it is open air. They sustain themselves if they've got an audience there. Very often the village is part of the theatre company as well.
Yeah.
Again, during the pandemic, I was doing a project with the government, actually with Bansi Kaul, who then passed away. But we were trying to mobilize folk theatre from different zones in the country. Literally theatre in the Himalayas. You've got, like, we were going through 15 types of folk forms just from the Himalayas. So the thing is, that will exist, but they, in any case, as Lillete said, there is no support for them. So what they've been doing for the last 50 years, they will continue to do. There are people who are stepping forward, like for instance the Rambo circus was adopted, and that is a folk form, but the thing is that um, all of these are, there's a one-off person who will say, okay, I'll adopt, okay, I will fund this particular thing. But we need the government to help the performing arts. We really do,
Yes,
and I feel that unless, the government steps in with actual cash, it's a tough thing, because otherwise everyone's self-sufficient. There are venues, there are artists, there are art forms, but there is some amount of money that is required for instance, when again you're talking about Sanjoy Lillete, last year I did something with Sanjoy to raise funds for the artistic community.
I know. He tried very hard, Anna, very hard to raise money
And
for the
and he
artists.
was saying that we don't even realize, but there is one person who sits and stretches the leather over a tabla. Now, if there's no art, he's wiped out, So it doesn't even dawn on us the layers of people that are out of jobs. We're looking at artists, we're looking at technicians, and there are all these artisans who support us.
Quasar, Quasar, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sanjoy and the NCP had actually done a survey at some point, and they discovered that to put one person on stage requires 35 other people.
Yes.
Wow.
That's really the industry. That's the iceberg. We only see the tip of the iceberg. We see the performer, the director, the people who come for curtain call, maybe the backstage team as they get caught in a blackout or whatever. But actually, to get that one person up there on stage, right? It is a huge, like when you're talking about ironing people and costumes, and like Anna said, set builders and putting leather on a tabla or putting buttons on a shirt. It is a massive industry in that way. And we don't pay enough this thing. And the other thing, Anna, it's not, I mean, yes, cold hard cash is one thing, but something that also would be beneficial, I think, and especially at a time like this, which is essentially a renaissance of, we're coming out of something. We should really have had, thoughts over the last 2 years of how not to do it the same way again. But it's also infrastructure. I mean, Sanjana had written a white paper on all these new townships that are coming up, that these fancy cities or whatever that are coming up, these smaller towns are becoming fancier and all. And in none of their proposals is there a community space. There's none of their places is there an auditorium or an art center. So you're building these soulless cities with no heart. I mean, we talk about in Bombay, we talk about a Prithvi and an NCP, and we say there should be more like those in every suburb, in every area, right? In Bombay alone, forget about the rest of the country. We're so under catered to, as a people, and I think that those are the kinds of infrastructure things. There's a lovely story about the building of the London rail, the underground. And when they were building it, they apparently thought that, okay, let's put the largest concentration of stations around the bank area where the offices are. And some bright spark said, no, let's move it all to where to the West End. So they said, why? They said, see, everyone needs to go to work, they'll go to work. But if you make it easier for them to go to entertainment, right, that will then help the economy. And as a result, week on week, 250,000 tickets are sold at the West End, right? Which then feeds the bars, the restaurants, the hotels, and it is an incredible place. And all they've done is just move the nodal point where you switch trains from Northern Line to Piccadilly Line or this line to that line. You do that around the West End. And because you're making it, everyone has to go through that area of town. People are like, okay, if I'm here and I'm changing trains, let me have a drink. Okay, let me meet a friend who's also going in the other direction. And immediately they've managed to create an incredible economy based on the arts, based on the fact that they made it easier for people to come to the theatre. And today,
Yeah,
I mean, London's economy, large part of it
Yeah.
is the tourist economy. That's tourist
Yeah.
for theatre. I mean, they call it theatre land for a reason.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good point. Now, guys, we have
And
time, sorry, only for two more quick questions. One is what I know is changing tracks a little bit, but we're out of time as usual. But I'd love to know what books you guys are reading. So, just one book, if you can pick very quickly what you're reading in a sentence, or
the
whether you
Silk Road.
even
I'm
had
reading
time to
something
read.
called the Silk Road. The Silk Road. It's a view of history, not the Western view of history. I don't know if you heard of it, the Silk Road.
Yeah.
No, you
Sorry,
heard
I
of
can't
this
hear
book?
you actually. Sorry.
I said it's called the Silk Road.
The
The Silk,
Silk Road, of course. Yes, yes. It's a
yes,
very well
amazing.
Is
known
this
and
the
admired book. Right, right.
is
Yes,
this the
yes. So,
Lovely.
Peter Frankopan piece?
I think
sorry,
so.
Is this the
I
Peter
can't,
Frankopan book?
I can't hear. I don't know what's happened suddenly.
Sorry.
Quasar, what about you? What are you reading?
Um, well, I just finished Illuminated by Anahita
Yeah.
Ghosh. I'm on a little bit of a trip right now where I have woefully discovered that what I thought was neutral was actually very male dominated. So now I'm trying to
The
correct my own,
industry? Yeah.
just generally the worldview.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm trying to correct it by trying reading more and more
I love that
female
answer, by the way.
authors.
As a
So
female writer, I love this. Yeah. I went for
uh,
Nandita's book launch in
so
Bombay. So I'm
right,
always supporting all my female author friends because I know that the
yeah.
journey we undertake is so much tougher than for a male author. I hate saying this in the 21st century, but the fact is that it is.
No, it's
So,
true.
yeah, hurrah for us. We're
So
trying our best. Well,
So
thank you
I'm
for
going
saying
to be
that.
very
You, we
bad.
needed to
I'm
hear
going to be,
that. And Aita, what about you?
I'm reading a man's book. It's a book called
Well,
The Parcel by Ano Shirani. And he basically, even though he is a Canada-based writer, he writes about Bombay in everything that he does. So I've
he's a
just
playwright.
begun.
He's a playwright. He's a
He's a
playwright. Sorry.
playwright. He's a playwright.
Great to
Yeah.
hear that. Fab. So we have a good mix of non-fiction playwrights and female authors, Indian authors. And guys, last question, and I'll wrap this up. I'm getting a lot of sign that we need to finish this. What was 2021 like for you all, and what are you looking forward to in 2022? Let with you. I'm your biggest fan, you know that.
2021, two things. One is it was a very reflective period. I didn't get into deep depressions and all that. It was like it was for everyone else, Meghna. It was reassessment, pause, reset, all that. But on a personal level, something very, very traumatic happened in the family. And so I was very consumed with that. I think I shared some of it with you.
Yes,
And
yes.
so it was a difficult period after a while. And that was 2020 into 21. 21 now is a little better. Hopefully 22 will be much better, and it'll be better on the personal as well as the professional front. I mean, one good thing is we were celebrating 30 years of my company, which finished March
Fab.
21, but we couldn't celebrate. So we have done a very truncated version, and we're going to celebrate in February next year, over for five venues over the month, and sort of say we are still alive. We haven't died yet. Maybe we won't for a while, and so that's something I'm looking forward to, and some very interesting projects that I will be also working on, both on stage and otherwise. And then I have this book which has been on my head like a Damocles sword. I made the fatal mistake of telling Harper Collins that I will write my memoir some years, a couple of years, almost a year and a half ago.
Fantastic.
They've been
Look
banging
forward
on
to
my
that.
head. They've not been banging. They've been very sweet, but I have to get on with it and write it. So that's something that I'll hopefully enjoy. I started writing and I really started enjoying writing. So that
Oh,
was a
glad to hear
discovery for
that.
me.
Call me for any
Yeah.
tips. Feel like a veteran now.
No, I realized
Anahita,
that
what about
it's
you?
pretty free flowing. You don't have to labor too
Yeah,
much. And
right.
and I've always enjoyed writing. So hopefully that might happen over the next couple of years.
Great, great. Thank you, Lillete. And Anahita, what about you?
So 2020 was I don't think I've worked that much in my life. I was working from morning to night, and I just got this pandemic was very exhausting. But 21 was a nice, happy mix, and I was just happy because I got back to my acting, I got back to doing a little bit of directing, and nothing makes me happier, really. And in next year, I've got some more stuff that I'm going to be working on. I've gone doing some web series work, and I'm also something that I've been wanting to do for the longest time. I'm going to be stepping into an area where I will be working on education using the performing arts for children.
Oh,
So
lovely.
I'm really looking forward to that. So that's something that I'm excited about. And of course, I hope if things open up and I'm okay to direct, I will be directing.
Fantastic. We look forward to that and wish you all the best. Q, what about you? By the way, I've known Q since what, 30 years? Oh God, we shouldn't reveal how old we
Yeah.
are. Okay, 25 years, 20 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, 2021 was tough. I mean, particularly the second wave, etc. I think for all of us, at some point there was a real pause where we had to
Yeah.
we just stopped doing whatever we were doing because it just felt wrong to invite people to anything.
Yeah.
So even though we were working online, we just stopped everything that we were doing, and it's taken a little bit of a while to kind of refine what our purpose is, as within the arts, within the world, within any space, artistically. I mean, this is just me speaking, but I do have a lot of faith for the theater, and I think that the theater is going to play an incredibly important part in us healing from this pandemic, these 2 years,
Very
3 years,
well put.
however long it
Yeah.
takes, because it's going to be one of the few places, or it's going to be the first place that you go and you witness something with generosity and curiosity alongside a stranger. And currently, we are getting into auto rickshaws thinking that that auto driver wants to kill us if they cough, or we're looking at people
Yeah.
at the supermarket, and we're looking with each other with complete suspicion. And it may not be overt
Yeah.
suspicion, it's something that's in the back of your head, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and and I think that the theater is a great way that we can heal from this. We can heal from this knee-jerk behavior that honestly is actually quite toxic and terrible. And when we go to the theater, we are all sharing in watching something with curiosity and generosity, and we're looking at a human being with joy. And I think that's something that the theater has a huge role to play going forward. It is, I think it is going to be the most important healer in that aspect.
That's phenomenal. That's so heartening to hear. Thanks for sharing those phenomenal thoughts, Q. And thank you, Anahita. Thank you, Q. And thank you, Lillete, for joining us. I think I'm admiring how much artists and institutions have, stepped into the digital universe. I think with great resilience, actually, during the pandemic. I'm sure you guys are dying to go live again. And, I think you've consistently anyway bucked expectations. You've gone beyond the ordinary. And you have so much, undeniable courage, I think, and the will to be better. So I think and I hope that you remain exactly as you are, digital or no digital, and hope to see you all live very, very soon. Wish you all the greatest and the best. Thanks for joining us here
Thank
today.